In the vast, empty expanse of the Australian outback, a place where the land seems to stretch forever. It's a place where the sun burns hot during the day and the cold creeps in once it sets. But the most chilling part of the outback isn't the heat or the cold, it's the silence. At least it was silent, until we heard the whistling. I was with a group of friends, roughing it out in the desert for a few days of camping. No roads for miles, no phones, just the open sky, red earth, and the stars above. We set up camp near an old dry creek bed, surrounded by grass and scattered rocks. A place as desolate as it was beautiful, the perfect spot to get away from it all. The fire cracked as we sat around, beers in hands, trading stories of our travels. Everything seemed peaceful at first. The only sound was the occasional rustle of the wind or a distant animal call. But as the night wore on, my friend Ben, who had been strangely quiet all evening, suddenly sat up. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The others fell silent, listening. There was nothing at first, just the soft snap of the fire and the buzz of the crickets. But then, faintly, we heard it, a soft, high-pitched whistle that seemed to come from somewhere far in the distance. The sound was strange, unnatural, like the wind itself was trying to mimic a human tune. It was slow at first, almost like a warning. "Probably just the wind," said Sarah, shrugging and leaning back in her arms. But Ben wasn't convinced. He stared into the dark, his eyes scanning the horizon. "I don't know. It's not normal," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. He had been to the outback before, and he knew how dangerous it could be to ignore strange noises, especially at night. The whistling grew louder. It was as if it was getting closer, closer with every passing moment, but no one saw anything. Not a shadow, not a figure, just the moonlight reflecting off the dry, cracked earth. Then all at once, the wind picked up. The fire flickered, casting long, eerie shadows across the camp. And there, among the sound of the howling wind, the whistling stopped. "That's weird," my friend Sarah muttered, uneasy now. That didn't sound like the wind anymore. Before anyone could respond, Ben stood up, his face pale. "It's not the wind," he said, voice shaking. "It's following us." We looked at him, confused. Then, one by one, we heard it again. A whistle, sharp and clear. Right behind us, it sounded like it was coming from just beyond the firelight. The kind of whistle someone might make if they were trying to get your attention. Panic set in. We grabbed our torches and shone them into the darkness, but there was nothing. No figure, no movement, just the cold, empty vastness of the outback. The whistling came again, closer now. So close that it almost felt like someone was standing right behind us, just out of sight. Someone or something. Ben backed away from the fire, his eyes wide with terror. "Over there," he whispered. "I think I see something." Had someone been stalking our camp, watching us and whistling? I asked. "There's no way," said Sarah. "That's insane." But at that moment, the whistle came again, louder and more insistent. Without thinking, we grabbed our things, ready to leave. But as we stood up, the whistling stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was suffocating. It was as if the entire world had paused. Then, through the quiet, we heard it, the sound of footsteps crunching through the dirt. Slow, deliberate steps, and then a voice.
"G'day."
We turned to face the figure standing just outside the firelight. A man, tall and thin, with sunken eyes and a crooked smile. His clothes were tattered like he'd been wandering the outback for decades. The man took another step closer. "You shouldn't be out here," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind.
"The outback takes what it wants, you know. It always takes."
No way we were going to stay and find out what he meant by that, so we ran. We ran like we'd never ran before, through the dirt and the scrub until the first light of dawn broke across the horizon. When we finally stopped, gasping for breath, we looked around. No sign of the man, no sign of anything, just the quiet, empty outback. We got back to our car and vowed never to return. I hope to God that I never hear that creepy whistle ever ever again.